What's going on, guys? It's the Unhinged Engineer here. I've been meaning to make a video geared towards some of the student viewers I have on this channel. I just wanted to share some honest advice from my time in undergrad, along with a couple of interesting little anecdotes that you guys hopefully find insightful, just experiences I have while I was in college. While everybody makes mistakes, and there are definitely things I could have done better in undergrad, I got, largely the outcomes I wanted, which was, a good degree, of course, but also like good internship experiences, a good job coming out of school, and a lot of fun and friends made along the way. So yeah, I just want to share what undergrad was like for me through some advice paired up with stories from my experience. So yeah, I'm also going to put some like video game gameplay on in the background. I haven't done that in a while, but I thought it'd be fun for this video. So yeah, let's get right into it. The first piece of advice I want to talk about, which I think is honestly the most important thing, like if you're going to watch this video for 30 seconds and then click off, please hear this out before you go. It's that your degree is not enough anymore. Like I think in the old days, like in our parents or maybe their parents' generations, like college was rare enough that just going to school, especially if it was a good school and you studied in a difficult program, was enough to secure you a high-paying job with a lot of security, and that's just not the case anymore. I don't think this is revolutionary. If you watch content on this channel, then you probably know this already, but I just wanted to share a funny story. It's a little morbid, but a funny story from the end of my college experience that kind of illustrates this. So, this took place my senior year, going into the spring. So I wound up kind of going to war in the first semester of my senior year, doing the career fairs, doing the cold applications, doing the interviews. Wound up getting a couple of internships that I could do as I finished out school, as well as a final full-time job offer that I actually would wind up switching later, but that's a story for another day. The point is that I worked really hard all throughout college and finished it off in the first semester of senior year to secure a job that I really wanted. In the spring semester of senior year, I really don't give a shit, to be honest. And I'm working with this guy, I can't remember his name. I'd heard about this guy, I hadn't talked to him very much. He was very mild-mannered, like very quiet, but nice and friendly. And so I worked with this guy on projects in this class. I can't remember even what class it was, and homeworks and other things. We start to strike up a little bit of a relationship. And then towards the end, senior year, I asked him, like, so what are you looking to do when you get out of school? And he goes, yeah, I honestly haven't really thought about it much. I was really just focused on classes. And I was thinking, like, it would be really good to get some real world experience. So actually, next week, I'm going to join 3D printing club. That was what he said. Now, I don't make videos like this to just rag on people, but I have never forgotten that story. Because at this point, I had spent 4 years doing all the things I talk about on this channel, like going for internships, doing research, being involved in clubs and hackathons and all these other things, tuning my resume over and over and over again. Like, I've been doing all this stuff, and this guy was completely oblivious. And I really mean that. Like, we talked about it a little bit more after the fact, and he really didn't think at all about getting a job. He didn't do any internships, he didn't do any research, he didn't do anything outside of class. He just was a student, and that's it. As I've gotten older, and as I've started making content like this, I'm realizing that that mindset is not as rare as I would have thought. There's reasons that I didn't have this mindset, which I'll definitely talk about over the course of this video. But that mindset of just like, I'm a student, I'm in school, I'm going to focus on school, is very common and really can lead to bad outcomes. My point here is, please do not be this person. There is so much more to college than just being a student and just performing well in classes and on exams and stuff like that. And I have to give credit where it's due. Like, the business bros have known this forever, because the actual academic things they do are pretty straightforward. So they've realized that the parts of business school that are indispensable are like the relationships you make and the networking skills you acquire and the organizational skills and discipline that you get from the real world experiences you go out and do, and leadership, all the other things that business bros yap about. But the point is, like, they're right. And I think engineering, for the longest time, back during the Apollo program, the technical content was so hard to find people who understood it that just going to class and knowing that stuff was enough. That's not the case anymore. We are a generation of people who were told to go to college and specifically to get into STEM. So just getting a bachelor's degree and then showing up for a couple clubs at the end like you would have done in high school is really not enough. That's like the first story and the biggest piece of advice I want to share. I think if there's one thing I could do, honestly, with this whole channel, is dispel you of the idea that just doing well in class and just being a good little student is going to get you a job and guarantee you the outcomes you want. We just don't live in that world anymore. That's first story. Second one, start early, even if small. So momentum in most realms of life takes time to compound, whether it's taking care of your health or whether it's building relationships in a new place or at a new school. These things take time. They take repetition and consistency. And building up a strong resume and a strong set of skills is no different. So I know I make a lot of content ranking the different kinds of engineering experience and what things are valuable to employers and what's not, and like just kind of trying to push you towards the highest ROI activities. I actually want to make a tier list soon, so keep a lookout for that video. But I know I make a lot of content like that, but the fact is, something is always better than nothing. And when you're a freshman, it's really, really hard to get experience in any way, even in clubs. It's hard to get actual hands-on experience doing relevant stuff. So take what you can get. Like, beggars can't be choosers. I mean, I started out doing unpaid research, followed by barely paid research, with a bunch of clubs in the middle. Then even through sophomore and junior year, I was doing hackathons and volunteering in places and like doing all this stuff. And I really only got my first full internship my junior year summer. So freshman year and sophomore year, I kind of had to get crafty and do a bunch of other things. I think in a previous video, I made like a pyramid of different types of engineering experience and kind of the cadence that people typically follow throughout their undergrad. The whole point of that is to demonstrate, like, you have to walk up the pyramid. You can't just jump to the end. And I do know a lot of people who, from day one as freshmen, just keep applying to meta over and over and over again, are frustrated and surprised when they don't just waltz into Mark Zuckerberg's office. Like, you got to start somewhere. So something is always better than nothing. And my intent, even with the tier list that I'm going to make and probably dog on certain types of experience, my intent is never to discourage you from pursuing a specific activity. It's just to steer you towards the highest ROI ones. But the reality, again, is it takes money to make money there. It takes experience to get the higher levels of experience that we actually want. So don't be afraid to start small. Okay, next one. Finding your niche. So I'm all for exploration of what you like and what you don't. A really, really bad outcome would be getting a career in something that you don't enjoy and that you don't want to stick to long term, that you don't have the interest in to continue growing over the course of your career. Like, that's a bad outcome that I am not trying to advocate for. But my problem with school is that the institution makes it seem like you can be in exploration mode indefinitely. You never actually have to pick one thing. You can just learn everything. Like, colleges are a buffet for information. They just want you to stuff your face for all eternity. The fact is, if you really want to get a job by the end of your college career, your end of your time in university, by the end of it, you need to have tangible, specific, reproducible skills that an employer can hire you for and know they're going to be able to deliver on the job once you've graduated. You can't just spend the whole time being a generally smart guy. Again, this is where it comes back to the whole school is not enough thing. Like, it's not enough to just be a generally smart and hardworking person anymore. There's so much competition that you really have to find your niche, A, so that you stick out from the crowd and actually get selected for opportunities, and B, so that you can build a portfolio of work that demonstrates your own unique value and something that you enjoy enough to actually go out and cultivate that portfolio. To illustrate this, I want to talk about my time working for NASA a little bit. So I worked for NASA for like 2 years. I wasn't off campus like at NASA Glenn or any of their actual research buildings. I worked for and then eventually ran a lab that was contracted by NASA. So for the specific project we were contracted on, we had like $150,000 of budget. We were a team of like 20 plus engineers. And by the end of that program, like for a sizable portion of it, I was actually the guy in charge. Like, I was the project manager and systems engineer, which at the time sounded like really, really spiffy and really impressive to me, at least. I was definitely an egotistical freshman, but as if I'm not an egotistical early career engineer, whatever. The point is, I was in charge of everything, and I was leading all these different teams between hardware, software, electronics, running tests, interfacing different subsystems with one another, writing reports. I was doing all of this stuff. Like, I was the guy in charge. And that NASA program wraps up. It comes time to start looking for internships, and I'm like, walking in like my shit doesn't stink, and I'm gonna get a phone call from Elon Musk to go work for him, and I get crickets. I got nothing. Granted, this did line up with the pandemic, but even among our group of people, there were lots of guys and girls who were doing very specific things, and I knew this because I was the one in charge, doing very specific things, who wound up getting internships at pretty prestigious companies because they had done something specific And I hadn't. I just stood in front of the room and yapped in front of a PowerPoint. So I actually should say, I did get one internship offer, and I remember it was a quality assurance role for commercial airliner seats. So like the mechanisms under the seat and in the headrests, like, you can move the headrest to like fall asleep on in an economy seat like I did the other night. Those things. Like I was gonna do QA for that. And the only reason I didn't take it was because it was actually like a several month-long co-op that would have jacked up my degree progression. Thank God I didn't take that. But the point is, that was not something I was interested in, and certainly not what I wanted the follow-up to my NASA job to be. So I didn't take it. And I was really, really devastated. But then I spent my junior year trying to figure out what I like. Okay, well, I really like math. Control system seems interesting. It's got a coding component that a lot of people seem to shy away from, but I actually enjoy it. Let's figure this out. Then I started doing research. Then I did some interesting projects in class. Next thing you know, junior year, I have a really technical internship that wound up getting me the rest of the things that came after, including my final job. So my point is, sooner or later, you have to translate potential into capability. I think when I was the leader, I had a lot of potential because I knew a little bit about a lot of things, but I hadn't actually done the work to translate that potential into actual skills and capability to execute on them. So lesson learned. Again, I'm not against exploration. I just think there's a time for exploration and a time for exploitation. And making sure that you get to the finish line there is really, really important. Two more. So for one, your GPA doesn't matter. I've talked about this a million times on this channel. I have a really specific story kind of towards the beginning of my college career that made me realize this, or at least index on this, and then it wound up being correct later, so I'm definitely happy with it. Basically, I was a bum in high school. I did not work very hard. I took a couple of AP classes and failed a couple. I was not a high performer in high school. I really only got my act together once I got to college. So I show up and I'm taking like the super basic classes, like Physics 1, Chem 1, Calculus 1, whatever. And I'm taking chemistry, and chemistry is the bane of my existence. I am so awful at chemistry. I hate chemistry. I want nothing to do with it. But I had to take one chem class. In fact, part of why I switched from mechanical engineering to aerospace engineering is because I had to take one less chemistry class, and I hated it that much that was a big selling point for me. A lot of my friends either had skipped because they took AP Chem in high school, which I bailed out of, by the way, or were taking again just because it was super easy and they wanted to pad their GPA. In either case, they were barely working at all, and they were getting easy A's. And I was struggling to get like a B-, which I think is ultimately what I got in this course. But I was struggling to get a B-. There was potential at several points throughout that class that I was gonna fail it. And so I'm working really hard, re-studying a lot of the material, all these things. And yeah, eventually I wind up scraping through with a decent enough grade. And the point that taught me was like, I was under the impression that I could never compete with any of these kids academically. That didn't wind up being true, but that was what I thought at the time. I'm never gonna be able to compete with them on raw GPA. So what else can I do? Well, I'm pretty hardworking. I'm a pretty social guy. Let me go out there and try to find real world experiences, and that's how I'll win. And that was where I started looking at research and doing competitions and volunteering and all this stuff. Because I was like, if I can't win in the classroom, I'll put a lot of energy and effort into the stuff that comes out of the classroom. And that was largely where the kinds of things I talk about on this channel, like where that ball started rolling. So all of this is to say, by chance, because I was bad at chemistry and still am, I kind of picked up on the idea early that what you do outside of the classroom matters more than what you do inside of the classroom. And it's definitely been true. So my only advice would be, like, if you're a great student and you can get a high GPA relatively easily, then by all means, go for it. But never sacrifice real world experience and real tangible skills that you can use in industry just to get a few more points in your GPA. I promise you, it will not be worth it. Focus on actually building yourself up as a professional, not as a student. Because again, to reiterate the first point, the goal of this is not to be a good student for 4 years. It's to transform ourselves from a high school student into a professional engineer. Those are not the same thing. Last piece of advice here I want to talk about is a little bit personal, but I want to just talk about like having fun, partying, going out, drinking, doing whatever, a little bit. I don't have a specific story for this, but just a concept that I've thought about really throughout my life and has helped me that I kind of figured out in college. When you're an engineering student and you're busting your ass and you're getting really stressed and overwhelmed with classes, the natural tendency is to start whacking things that you don't need, like partying, like hanging out with friends, like even going to the gym if it takes too much time. going outside, right? The stereotypes are there for a reason. The inclination is to start cutting these things out of your life to just focus on school. And obviously there are some points in your life, right, even beyond school. Like I know for interview processes in the past, I had to like lock in. And the second I got home from my day job, I would go study for hours or prepare for hours for an interview that I had coming up. So I'm all for locking in, for sure. But it's important to recognize that these things that we're throwing out are very important auto-regulatory functions. When we are stressed, it helps us to go break a sweat, or to go spend time around people we care about, or to go just let loose a little bit and have some fun. These things emotionally regulate where we're at, and if we start cutting out all of our modes of emotional regulation as we get stressed, it's going to start to make us more stressed. And I saw this doom spiral happen a million times to tons of people, including myself. So my point is, obviously sometimes you have to lock in, but hold that line. Reserve time and space for the things that you really, really care about as much as possible for as long as possible. Don't throw them out immediately because it's what TikTok tells you you're supposed to do. You're supposed to work 12 hours a day and not have any social interaction. Try to live a balanced life as much as possible. If you can't, you can't. But balance is important. It's a beautiful thing. And I think that balance is not something to be over-optimized for, but it's also not something to be avoided. Balance is just a fact of life that is something that we want and is beneficial to us. Have some fun in college. We're not just there to party. Like, I'm not one of those people. I never was. I was there to get a job and there to perform. But it's also a very unique point in your life that I definitely miss from time to time, for sure. So yeah, have some fun. Okay, that's it for today's video. I just wanted to make it a little bit more of a casual one than usual. I figure it's been a while since I was more open like this. I also know there's a lot of students who watch my videos, and I wanted to make something just for you. So I hope you enjoyed. If you have any other stories that you want to share or insights that you agree or disagree with what I said today, definitely drop a comment below. Like I said, I'm the Unhinged Engineer. I make professional development content for other engineers like myself. I'm mostly geared towards people kind of in their early 20s, like 2 to 5 years of experience out of college, because that's just where I'm at in my life. But I also make videos that are hopefully relevant to other people as well. So like I said, like, comment, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.